Good morning, Mark.
Good
I'm
morning.
Amberlynn Esperanza. So nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well, and thank you for taking the time today to have a conversation with me.
Yes, and so you are one of the candidates running for mayor of Portland. That's correct.
It is.
Excellent. No, I'm so excited for you. So just a couple questions just to ask, but
Sure.
just want to get started here. You do have an impressive personal and professional background coming into this campaign. How do you think that will serve you as mayor?
Well, I've had 45 years of serving the city of Portland in one capacity or another. I spent 21 years with the police department, left as deputy chief. I was the Cumberland County Sheriff for 12 years. I went on to serve in the legislature where I was a state representing Portland, as well as a state senator. Now I'm serving on the council. So I think in terms of policy and understanding what the community needs, what it wants, and what we're capable of, I've seen it from many different perspectives. So, and more importantly, even when I was working at the police department, I was a staff person among the city workforce, like many. So I understood that when the council made a decision, how it would impact me, my families, and my coworkers. So I bring a pretty diverse set of perspectives to the role of mayor.
It seems like Portland is really near and dear to your heart.
I love this city. I mean, I really, somebody asked me today, what happens, if you're not voted in as mayor? I go, I continue to serve the city. I'll find a way to participate. I love this community. I raised my daughters. My wife is a member in terms of she's in the workforce here. My grandchildren are always happy when they come to Portland. I want to be proud of this city. And we're facing some real challenges. So I want to make sure we get on track, find our center again, and move us all forward.
And you really have a positive outlook on the future of Portland.
Yes, I've seen it. I mean, I arrived here in 1972 as a 17-year-old kid. I thought I was in the big city, and back then Portland was still a fishing town. The wharves had draggers, and gill netters and different kinds of vessels. And it was a town that was oriented to the harbor. And I remember when the first stores and restaurants opened in the old port, I wasn't sure because it was a tough district, empty warehouses, rundown buildings. But people had a collective vision about what Portland could become. And we can look outside the window today and see that vision has been realized. Well, I think we have more to do in creating a better city than we have today. And that's why I love this city. And in order to get it done right, I need to become mayor.
I like the sounds of that. And personally, my parents immigrated from the Philippines. And the first place that they lived was Munjoy Hill,
Okay.
along with my aunt and uncle. And three of them actually work for Maine Medical Center, as they do for years and up till today.
We've been a welcoming city to immigrants for a long time. Munjoy Hill was home to Italians and Greeks. A lot of the stonework, the brickwork of the city was at their hand, so we see new faces and new cultures. And I think that diversity is important. You know, I'm happy that when I look at a classroom of children, they don't all look like me, because that means we have different viewpoints and understandings. And they're going to define Portland in a way that I can't because I'm not them. And I'm not frightened by that. I think I need to make sure the gate is wide open for those new understandings of what the city has a potential to become.
Definitely. As sheriff, you advocated for mental health services for mentally ill offenders. Could you talk more on that?
Listen, a lot of the men and women that find themselves at the Cumberland County Jail are there because either they have a substance use disorder or they really need mental health treatments. And we haven't done a good job as fellow citizens of providing them services and spaces where they can be safe and assisted in managing their condition. And the jail became a de facto mental health hospitals. There were days when I was sheriff that I had 600 inmates in my care. All of them required some sort of psychiatric medication to get through the day. I don't think when we talked about community mental health, we were talking about putting people behind bars. We were talking about facilities, homes, where they could have one-to-one interaction and a level of care. So I fought really hard in Augusta for that. I tried to convince legislators as well as city councilors. Jails are not a therapeutic setting. You know, they have a purpose, but therapy wasn't it. So I was pretty vocal over my 12 years of sheriff of doing that, and I saw some success. I also saw some success in encouraging private business entities to hire inmates coming out. If they go back to the same circumstance that they found themselves in when they got arrested, it's just a wheel. They'll be back in my care and custody eventually. And I'm really happy that certain businesses reached out, saw an opportunity. It was not a typical human resource that they would reach out to, but they were able to develop really good, committed employees. And it amplified their dignity and their willingness to follow the rules, and they could take care of their responsibilities. It feels good to earn a paycheck. I know that's kind of corny, but it's reflective on yourself, and it's a way of you telling you, I'm getting it done. And I was proud as sheriff to do what I could to have those kind of events happen for people that had been in my care.
And there are a few nonprofits that I know of that are helping inmates get back to the workforce, and it's really changing a lot of lives.
Yeah, probably the biggest leader there is Margot Walsh and what she does. I remember when she first came in my office with the idea, and she says, what do you think? I go, whatever I can do to help you realize your dream, that's going to be so helpful to so many. So I'm one of her biggest boosters. She does more to prevent crime by people staying sober, straight, and employed.
And she's received multiple awards.
And she should. And I'm real, like I said, I'm real proud of her that she's done that. And it shows a level of leadership that I hadn't seen in some time in helping people who are in a bad way find a better way forward.
And mental health is not something that's talked about every day, is there?
No, people are still, if I get a broken leg, everybody wants to sign the cast. But if I'm suffering from chronic depression, emerging schizophrenia, or I'm somewhere on some spectrum, we're frightened by it. I mean, if somebody has an acting out event, that's usually anxiety driven. In Monument Square, they call the police. If you fall down and hurt yourself, they call MedQ. I wish we could see people in mental health crisis through the same lens that we see individuals suffering some sort of physical mishap. It's no reflection on who you are. It is a reflection on what you're challenged by, and we shouldn't make it any more difficult than necessary.
Do you think that the homeless population has a lot of mental illness at this time?
I think the homeless population has substance use disorders for sure. There is also mental health issues. There's the added anxiety and stress of not having a home and living in those conditions. However, there's always a however. In this instance, I think there are some that are in these encampments who are predators. They manipulate and exploit individuals who have no resources. And there are a number of them that engage in intentional criminal conduct. And I believe as a mayor, I will direct the police chief to use what resources is necessary to intervene and remove those types of individuals and to lessen the presence of encampments. Because we have a right, all of us have a right to safe streets and parks and neighborhoods that make sense and where you want your kids to go out and play, or you want your mom and dad to take a walk and not feel threatened or intimidated about the possibility of what could occur. And that's not the condition we have. And that's one of the issues that I'm running for as mayor. I want a safe city. I want an affordable city. So I want to offer people housing, but I can't continue to allow these makeshift villages to grow, expand in all our neighborhoods. To me, that's not doing them any good, and it's surely not making for a safer community for the rest of us.
That's a great segue to my next question. You are running on a platform of public safety and affordability. Can you explain more on why you feel those are important to Portland residents and businesses?
Well, affordability has to do, one, if you're a business person, The time it takes for a business to be created through permitting and licensing costs money. I want to shorten those timelines. When you make a decision that you want to have a business to when you open the door should happen as quickly as your capital will allow that to occur. And you shouldn't feel that the city is a hurdle to overcome. We should be a resource to help you realize that vision. I don't think that's always the case right now in the city of Portland. I think in terms of business fees, there needs to be reform. They escalate every year. I don't think the average person, or city councilor for that matter, understands how narrow the margin is between operating costs and actually realizing a profit. I want to be a mayor that recognizes that issue and assists business owners to do that. In terms of affordability, I want you to live in the city of Portland. That seems like a radical concept right now. We don't have enough housing. We need to use our leverage as a city to create opportunities for developers who can pencil out a project so it makes sense to everyone but keeps rentals down. I'm getting on in my years, I'll admit that. When I came to Portland, I had a one-bedroom apartment for $130 a month.
No way.
Oh, yeah. Oh, way. On the other hand, my gross salary as a patrol officer was $156 a week.
Okay.
So everything's in context. Wish I could make the money I'm making now and have that rent.
Sure.
But the point is, I think my friends and colleagues perceived that living in Portland was just a matter of deciding to do it. They didn't feel shut out. I think right now, if you're a young professional, you're confronted with really high housing costs. It eats up what income you have at your disposal. I'd like to see what we can do to encourage or incentivize developers to establish a new market rate. Right now, I think $3,000 plus is not affordable. We're not all starting our careers at $180,000 a year. You know, I'd like to see something lower to $2,000 or even $1,800. So we either have to impact the cost of materials, the cost of fees, the cost of a decision by the city to allow you to build something, which sometimes can take a year. If we can shorten those, then time will subtract the overall cost from the project. And I've already started talking about the possibility that those who have short-term rentals could be incentivized with stipends to take their rentals off the leisure market and put them to use as housing for people that want to call Portland home. So when I talk about affordability, it's the affordability to create housing, and it's the affordability to actually enter a tenant relationship. And it's also, when we have the opportunity, buy a home. In the last 3 years, mortgage costs have doubled, sometimes tripled. So I think the city has to be more assertive in working with financial institutions in the city to see where we can get creative. I don't pretend to be a financial expert, but I will call upon financial experts in this city to help guide us forward. The safety piece I've kind of touched upon. I can't help it. I think my law enforcement background points to the idea that we don't feel safe going to work, being in our neighborhood, being out in the evening. I want to tell my daughter she can run the boulevard at night and not have to worry about it. I'm not sure I can say that convincingly right now. And we've made decisions as a city, and we've seen a reduction on our police force and our capacity to have a high presence and respond quickly to issues. So I'd like to turn that around. But I also see safety. When I talk to elders, do you know what their number one public safety problem is?
No.
Uneven sidewalks. What are they fearful of? Falling and breaking a hip or a leg. For them, recovery takes a long time. So I want to pay attention to streets. I want them safe for pedestrians. I want accessible bike lanes, but I want sidewalks that work. It's not dramatic. No one's going to make a TV series about it. The mayor who built sidewalks. But at the end of my term, if people could say that, he actually laid down more new sidewalk than any other mayor, I think I've had a success. Because that's what makes a city livable. You can get from point A to point B without any hassle. So those are the core ideas. I don't have a long list of programs like my opponents do, because I'm only going to ask two questions of the council for every decision we make. Does it make our city more affordable, to either run a business or live here? And are we safe? That's it. If we can say yes to those on every proposal that comes before us, I think we have a better city, and we give you and your peers an opportunity to build the vision we began.
It sounds like you have a lot of relationships with the business community, the nonprofits, other communities. I just had a question on how you could professionally participate in municipal government or help young professionals have a voice in the city and get the jobs that they are looking to take while looking for an apartment and starting their life in Portland.
Listen, I think young people are doing a lot. This is a tough environment. I think you have to be much more creative than previous generations when you consider what kind of work do I want. But unlike my generation, you want to balance the quality of your job with the quality of life. I think we felt more duty bound to our jobs and kind of took care of the family piece as a second notion. All right, for better or for worse, that was our orientation. I appreciate the new orientation. And I implore young people, young professionals to come to City Hall and participate. We have a variety of boards and commissions. There are always vacancies. We hustle individual counselors to find people that are committed to the vision of a better Portland to participate. And I talk to the 28-year-olds or the 32-year-olds, and they go, I don't know anything about government. I don't know if I have anything to contribute. You are the contribution. Come to the conversation. You'll be surprised what's inside of you once you're given a task to work on or an idea to sort out with others. I think you'd actually find it stimulating, and it'll expand your horizons, but more importantly, it creates a new network for you to participate in, which will pay off dividends as the years go on. My ability to connect today wasn't accomplished last week. It was accomplished 20 years ago and built upon. And I think successful business people, residents who enjoy their city, families that work, it's all about who we're connected to and what's the return for the investment we put into that relationship. Relationships take hard work and time. And I'm asking for people like you to come to City Hall and say, where can I participate? You bring energy. You bring new ideas. You get to challenge us. You get to say the really hardest question of all is, why do we do that the way you do? So that's my ask today. Is when I become mayor, I'm hoping to see a whole bundle of resumes saying, I want to be on this commission or that board, that we actually have to think that, God, we can't bring them all on. Maybe that'll inspire us to find other ways for you to participate. But you all need to take the first step. I just want to tell you, you'll be welcomed.
And that's one advice that I give all to my board members or the event attendees is to just show up.
Sure.
And that you don't need to be perfect or great. You just have to start to be great,
You have to be willing. And you have to take a risk. And it's scary. The first time you're on a board, I can't do this. But you can. You'd be surprised. And if you're willing to admit, I don't know everything, you'd be surprised how many of us are willing to step forward and be a mentor and say, this is how you do it. Because we know the process will always continue, but the players will change. So we want to have a new generation of players that can come in and pick up the pieces and maybe arrange it in a way we hadn't considered in the past. That's how progress is achieved. Like I said, I met the owners of the Old Port Tavern when they first opened, and I was the foot patrol officer there. And I go, I don't know, guys. Is this going to make it? I mean, it shows you the business acumen I had. But they believed in themselves, and they believed in the potential of that neighborhood. And later on, as I moved up the administration, I did all I could to support others who had a similar vision for that district in the city. And what have we seen? The Old Port has blossomed. It's pushed its way on India Street. Mm-hmm. It's gone up India, taken a right on Congress, up the hill, and west and north out on Washington Avenue. That's what we want. Those are a lot of people individually and collectively have better ideas about how Portland could function. And that's why I want those people to join my administration.
As county sheriff, you were the first in law enforcement to come out in support of medical marijuana for the terminally ill, much to the surprise of your counterparts. Why is that?
That's such an understatement. It was more of a shock rather than a surprise. Listen, a couple of, goes back to the power of a few, a couple of people in the city said there has to be a better way for our friends and families to manage their illness. And it appears that cannabis provided relief. So they met with me, and they had a young lawyer with them, and they said, Sheriff, he could just jump in with us, it would make a difference. And I thought about it, and it made sense. And I went to talk to some of the patients. I remember a young woman that had multiple sclerosis. She goes, do you know what it's like to get a Charlie horse? I go, yeah, it's pretty painful. I go, absolutely. She says, how about getting one throughout your entire body at one time? She says, that's what I have to fear every day. Am I going to get that kind of an event? And she says, when I use cannabis, it dissipates, it takes care of it. I met with a retired fire chief, career Marine, still had the buzz cut going. He says, look, I'm dying of bladder cancer. He says, there's no question about it. He says, I feel terrible. But he says, how do you say it? I catch a buzz. He says, I take some marijuana. He says, and I smoke it in my pipe. And he says, I feel okay, and I can have something to eat. But he goes, you know what bothers me? He's not what I'm going through. He says, my son's a school teacher. He has to go out and buy it, and if he gets caught, it could ruin him. And I saw many stories like that across the city and the county. So I came out and says, look, we have to make this legal. We can have compassionate care and not upend all of public safety in doing it. And the dirty little secret was all the police leaders knew marijuana wasn't a priority, but they weren't willing to say anything about it. I did, and it turned out to be 9 of us on the campaign, and we passed a statewide referendum. Almost 70% of the voters decided, you know what, that makes sense. If you're dying, you should be able to have anything at your disposal. If you have a chronic disease, why do you need to suffer every week? Because some bureaucrat decided cannabis was illegal. We changed that, and I'm proud of that. And I think for me, it was my scary moment where sometimes you got to take a risk to be a leader, and there's no guarantee that everyone's going to applaud you, but you have some understanding within yourself it's the right thing to do. You know, when chiefs would confront me, and they had all sorts of names for me at the time.
I was going to say, I'm sure you got some pushback.
And at one meeting, one number of them, I says, you know, you're all right. These people are so devious, so interested in getting high that they went out and got themselves a catastrophic disease just so they could access it. And one of them started laughing, and then the others all chuckled. I says, that's my point. This is your family. These are your friends. These are people we know, kids we played ball with. They're sick. They deserve access to whatever will provide them relief. And we turned out to be right. And that's why I want young people to work with me as mayor, because I want one of them to have that risky moment where they're not quite sure. Their gut tells them it's the right thing, but all their friends in their head says, no, you can't go there. You know, you'll have some sort of bad consequence. Take that risk. Some of us will be there to support you in that process.
And that one moment of you having the strength to speak up and advocate for something you believe in inspired the 8 others to also join.
Yeah, and we had a group, and we moved forward, and in time, the public understood what we were trying to do, you know. And there's no saying, first you have to be seen the fool before people see the truth. And that's what we were doing. We're saying, look, I know this drug came into our understanding wearing blue jeans and ponytails and rock music, but it might actually have a benefit for people that are shut up in their homes or chronically visiting the hospital. And we shouldn't deny them the opportunity to be with us in a way they'd like to be with us, to improve the quality of their life. And all we have to do is make a decision to step forward. So that's why I'm running for mayor. I want to step forward. I want to talk about the things that are important to the city, and I want to inspire others to join me so we can get the job done.